We've done 10 freaking videos talking about how weird and creepy Pokedex entries are. 11 if you count the Mega Evolutions video. It's always fun to look at all the ridiculous in-game statements that are at odds with our normally colorful and tame view of the Pokemon world. But despite the Pokedex videos being one of the longest running and most successful segments on this channel, I recently realized we have not made one of these in almost 2 years. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon did not have Pokedex entries for the entire National Dex in 2017, so that only gave us about one new video of content. And 2018's Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had a tiny Pokedex that's way tamer than the usual one. After covering over 100 unique Pokedex nightmares, I think we've actually run out of nightmare fuel until Sword and Shield gives us something new. The well has dried up. Unless... You know what we haven't done? The opposite of horrible, dark, and terrible. Let's get some positivity up in here. Sure, Pokemon is already a super friendly franchise, but I just want to find the most colorful, most heartwarming, the most wholesome entries that the Pokedex has to offer. Here's 10 picks that we were able to find that fit the description. Starting with Hypno. Oh no, not that Hypno. Sure, the hypnotizing, dream-snatching, child-kidnapping Hypno just might be the poster child for all things horrible in Pokemon lore, but you might be surprised to find that Hypno can actually help people. Pokemon Sun acknowledges that while it is an extremely dangerous Pokemon, people who are in need of a good sound sleep call it their savior. And while that sure does sound reckless, Ultra Moon's entry expands on this surprising positive benefit to the clinical level. There are some Hypno that assist doctors with patients who can't sleep at night in hospitals. If even Hypno can have a positive effect on society, who knows what other Pokemon might have a hidden redemptive arc today. Another easy redeemer is Abyssal, the disaster Pokemon. Sometimes this Pokemon is thought to be like one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, with statements that imply it brings natural disasters to the land when it appears. Personally, I always thought Abyssal was bad. I mean, it's dark typing, and it has a freaking scythe on its head, but it turns out Abyssal is literally the opposite. The only thing unlucky about Abyssal is its appearance. It protects fields and warns people of disaster, so one ought to be grateful for it. That's actually really sad. Abyssal gets blamed for all this bad stuff, but in the end it only wants to help. And you know who's to blame for all this mislabeling? It's the freaking boomers! According to Ultra Moon, it's all the old people's fault for misunderstanding the poor thing. You know who else has a wholesome role with the environment? Agron, of all Pokemon. It turns out that this hulking beast is actually just a gentle tree-hugging giant. Agron is surprisingly protective of its environment. If its mountain is ravaged by a landslide or a fire, this Pokemon will haul topsoil to the area, plant trees, and beautifully restore its own territory. This iron-horned demon? Actually a gardener. You'll love to see it. You'll also love to see Togekiss. Now, besides the fact that this thing already resembles a plump battleship of happiness, I just love the core concept of all of this thing's entries. Let's start with Platinum. It shares many blessings with people who respect one another's rights and avoid needless strife. I just adore the idea of Togekiss as this mascot for freaking human rights. There's also a little bit of edge to this, like, mind your business, Karen. Maybe don't spill that tea today. As the Diamond and Pearl Dex entry says, it will never appear where there is strife. Its sightings have become rare recently. Well damn, let's be good to each other, okay? Lapras is also something that is mentioned to be rare. Several of its Pokedex entries in earlier games mention that it has often been overhunted to near extinction. But then, in Sun and Moon, Lapras got a redemption arc. These Pokemon were once near extinction due to poaching. Following protective regulations, there's now an overabundance of them. I love the idea that humanity can pitch in and correct the damage that they've done to the ecosystem, bringing a nearly extinct species back to thriving in nature once again. There's so many of them! So many that now the fish are dwindling in population. Has science gone too far? For something a little less world-altering and a little more lighthearted, there's a Alolan Rattata. It shows no interest in anything that isn't fresh. If you take it shopping with you, it'll help you pick out ingredients. Man, you hear that? That rat is fresh! Next time you're at the grocery store, he'll make sure you aren't wasting your $50 bills. Then, when you get home, you can put him on your head and he'll control you like a puppet by pulling your hair. Yeah, it sounds weird, but just trust me, that's how it works. It's science. You'll make the finest cuisine the world has ever seen. My next two picks have something in common. They are both so happy to finally be able to fly. First up is Mega Pinson. We had a whole video about Mega Evolution Dex entries and how they are some of the darkest and most unfortunate things that happen to Pokemon. They go through quick, unnatural, and violent changes that cause them constant pain. But probably not Pinsir. After Mega Evolution, it becomes able to fly. Perhaps because it's so happy, it rarely touches the ground. Even though most Pokemon come out of the process miserable, I'm glad that at least one Pokemon got something good out of the deal. And of course, Salamence is iconic for its flight-based Pokedex entries. As far back as its introduction, Salamence's Dex entries mention how happy it has become by achieving its dream of flight. Salamence says follow your dreams, and I'm about it. But what I especially love is its newest Pokedex entry in Ultra Moon, which reads less like a scientific report and more like a poem. Thanks to its fervent wishes, the cells in its body finally mutated, and at last it has its heart's desire. Wings. My next pick, Torchic, is not quite as elegant, but it is just as heartwarming. Literally warming, because almost all of Torchic's Dex entries mention the positive warmth you'll feel when you hug this little guy. My absolute favorite comes from Heart Gold Soul Silver. Inside its body is a place where it keeps a small flame. Hug it! It will be as warm as a hot water bottle. I love when Dex entries do that because it's so rare. The Pokedex demands of you, hug it! Exclamation mark. It's excited. Do it! Hug the warm hot water bottle, baby. Hug it right now. And our final Pokedex entry comes from the story of a Pokemon who really needed a hug. Cubone's been part of my weird and creepy Pokedex for a long time. It's basically the poster child for it. It cries for its dead mother, it's eaten by mandibuzz, it has one of the saddest Pokemon card artworks of all time. It's just been a bad time for Cubone for pretty much forever. But in the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald Pokedex entries for Marowak, we finally get to hear of some Cubone that are in a better place now. A Marowak is the evolved form of a Cubone that has grown tough by overcoming the grief of losing its mother. Its tempered and hardened spirit is not easily broken. Overcoming loss and tragedy is hard. It's one of the hardest challenges people will ever have to go through. After watching Cubone suffer for years and years, I'm really glad to see that sometimes this story does have a happy ending. I've searched the Pokedex far and wide for horrors and atrocities, and it was a nice change of pace looking at something positive for once. I'm sure that Sword and Shield will give us some new dark material to work with, but I'll start looking on the bright side of things too for this new side series. I'll catch you guys next time with more games. I hope you have a wholesome day.